Well, hello there. I'm about to take you through my 5-step process for picking paint colors for your interior walls. I'm also going to be showing you how and why I recommend using one of my new favorite companies to assist in that process. So let's get to it.
I've seen the fruits of my labor. What I have, I built with my own hands.
Yo, what's cracking, folks? Jeremy Vassar here with Practical Painting. We are professional painters here to help you with your various painting endeavors, and that includes picking out wall colors, which is what this video is all about. In this video, I'll be talking about using one of my newish favorite companies, which is called Sampleize. And if you happen to be one of my clients that I've sent this video to and you don't want to hear me talk about it, you just want the link is in the description below. Sampleize did not sponsor this video, but they are an affiliate of ours, so if you use that link, it just helps support the channel. It doesn't cost you anything extra, and yeah, it's super sweet, and I'll be talking more about them in a little bit. If you're looking at any interior room in your house, you most likely have 3 colors you need to pick: one for your ceiling, one for your walls, and one for your trim. I did a completely separate video on how to pick out trim and ceiling paint. Generally, those two go together and they're the easiest to pick. And so for the sake of this video, let's say you have already selected your ceiling paint and your trim paint and you're in the rough neighborhood of a standard white for both. That's where most people land, and it's what I recommend in that video. So that's where we're at, and now we're just focused on the wall color and enter my 5-step process for getting through this. Number 1 is to start early. I know that's not really a step in the process, but it's worth mentioning because I've taken so many people through this, and picking out paint colors can be super stressful, and then if you add time pressure to that process, it gets even crazier. I believe a couple years ago they came out with a report saying that one of the most stressful retail experiences was in the paint aisle of Lowe's and Home Depot, and they judged that based on the amount of cardiac events people were having while they were in the store in those sections. So people were legitimately having like heart attacks trying to pick out paint and paint colors, which we don't need to have it escalate to that point. It's going to be fine. We'll get through it. So if samples don't work out or something changes, you've got time to adjust. You can go back and forth to the paint store and do any errands that you need to do, and that way you're not super stressed out from a time standpoint either. So as soon as you know you're going to be doing a home renovation or a project, or you're like, hey, I'm going to paint my bedroom in I think I want to do it this month or in 2 weeks or whatever, just start this process as soon as you know that you're going to be doing some painting. The one caveat I would kind of put on that is that if you are renovating your kitchen or a bathroom or any major renovation where you're changing a lot of the textures and surfaces in the room, so like new flooring, like countertops, tile cabinets, anything like that where you're paying top dollar for those services that are permanent, I would wait till those get installed before you start looking at paint colors. You can kind of have some paint colors in mind, but we do a lot of work behind renovators that do a lot of kitchens and baths, and that's the one thing I coach those clients to just kind of wait until they get their cabinets and all of that stuff picked out, because a lot of times they're going to run into decision fatigue too. If you add paint colors to that stack, I generally wait till that's all done, because once the expensive stuff goes in, you can definitely find a paint color that works, because there's a bajillion paint colors. Number 2 is start with popular colors. I don't really care where your colors come from. I have my own selection process, and generally I steer my clients towards either the Benjamin Moore color palette or the Sherwin-Williams color palette. As I go through this example of picking colors, I'm going to be using Sherwin-Williams as an example because that's the one I've used the most, and I kind of have their system dialed in pretty well. So if you go into any paint store, whether it's Home Depot, Lowe's, Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore, they usually have a color wall which has all of the colors kind of in these little like these little chips everywhere. So you've seen these. They're going to give you a color palette, and then you see like how they're used in the room. The issue with these that I think again is overwhelming, and these are just a few of my gripes before I get into what I actually recommend, is that it's super unlikely that your house looks like these homes. These are professionally staged homes that have been professionally designed, professionally painted, and all of that stuff. So my house doesn't look like this. So the chances of these colors working well, and if you don't have the decorating scheme like they do, it's unlikely that your job or your room's gonna end up looking like any of these rooms. So largely, I think these are useless, other than be like, oh, that's a cool house that doesn't look like my house. So I don't really recommend even like, do what you want. You can spend as much time doing this as you want, but I try to get to like what's gonna work the quickest. So I like, one of the things I found about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, is Sherwin-Williams has this little pamphlet that is called Top 50 Colors. And bang, right there. So these are actually like their top 50 colors that are selling. So like these colors of all the colors have sold the most over, you know, the last year or whatever. So I find it to be a really good place to start. It's got their top 5 whites, which we've seen all the, you know, a lot. And then you have like their top color, which is still right now agreeable gray, which we've painted a ton of. And this is where I start kind of all my clients. And one of the reasons I recommend going with popular colors is that chances are if you're repainting a room or, you know, space in your house, you might be doing some decorating. If you stick kind of with some popular colorways, you're going to have a much easier time decorating your house. So that means finding throw rugs that go with it, blankets, pillows, any accent pieces. So if you go to Home Goods and Marshalls or Costco, you're going to find furniture and decorative items and, like I said, rugs and towels and all that stuff that kind of complement these colors. And that's the reason kind of these are popular, is that they work with most people's homes and the decorating scheme that most people are using. You still have a lot of wiggle room within that, but I've just found this to be incredibly useful. I usually go through with a client and circle these because I have a bunch of these in my car. And so for the sake of this one, I'll do Repose Gray. Let's see, which is number 2. And then I'm just gonna make a couple more that I know that I have. I'll do Reflection, and then I'll do Lazy Gray. That'll be a good little spread here. Okay, so now that you've got a couple colors you wanna check out, step 3 is to look your colors up in a color deck or on a color wall at your respective paint manufacturer. I really like, and I highly recommend getting a full color deck. These are super useful, and if you're going to be doing a lot of painting in your house, they're really nice to have around. The reason I recommend doing this is a lot of people look up colors on their computer, which is not a terrible place to start. I know a lot of, you know, Benjamin Moore and Sherwin-Williams both have like kind of color builder where you can kind of see what it looks like in a room. All those colors are going to look different depending on what device you're looking at, and like my computer is the colors are going to look different than on your computer. So because you're picking colors, that's super important to get right. You want to actually look at the colors either on like a color chip or inside of the color deck, and then progress from there to an actual sample. And these are only like 20 bucks. A lot of stores will let you just loan it out too, particularly if you're going to be using their paint. Okay, so I've got my 3 colors I'm interested in. I'm going to go ahead and look them up in the color deck here, and they're generally laid out the same. You can look them up from an alphabetical standpoint in the index in the back, and that's generally how I do it. All right, so I've found my 3 colors that I was interested in my my fan deck here. I've got Agreeable Gray that sits at the top. I've got Reflection, and then Lazy Gray. Reflection and Lazy Gray are both fairly they're a little close, but they're both in that kind of cool tone blue family, and I can see the blue undertones like when you look at, I'll show this camera over here. If you look towards the bottom, like Lazy Gray's right here, and then Reflection's up here. If you go down the list here, you can see that they've got very deep like blue undertones, so that's going to be a blue gray. Whereas if you look at Agreeable Gray, if I come all the way down to the bottom of these swatches, you can see there's a lot of brown in it. So that's going to be a more of a warm tone, kind of grayish, which are fairly popular right now. All right, so now I've got the few colors that I'm interested in pursuing further. We're going to move to step 4 in the process, which is actually getting paint samples. Now, it used to be, a couple years ago, you could just go to a paint store and request them. However, in kind of the last year and a half-ish, we've had quite a few supply issues, and one of the things that's hard to get is actual sample paint. Also, these are relatively expensive. They're between $7 and $9, so if you're buying a lot of samples and you want to see a lot of colors, it's going to cost you a fair amount of money. It's just something to consider, and why I highly recommend going with this company that I'm going to talk about in a second called Sample Eyes. And we started using them. They've been around for a little bit, and we've been using them pretty much since they started. It was about maybe like a year and a half ago, maybe a little bit more. What their company is you can click the link in our description of this video. It'll take you right to their website, and they have all of Benjamin Moore's, Sherwin-Williams, PPG, and I think was it Faro and Ball, or Ball and Faro, all of those paints. And they're constantly adding more colors, but the two I'm most concerned with are all the Benjamin Moore and Sherwin-Williams colors. And you go to the website, you just click on shop, and then you type in whatever color that you landed on from, in this instance, Sherwin-Williams. So I would have typed in agreeable gray, reflection, and lazy gray. And then they'll pop right up. You can add them to cart and then check out. And what's cool is they're cheaper than the sample paint is from Sherwin-Williams specifically. And a lot of times they have sales and things, and now they offer next day shipping, which is super sweet if you're in a time crunch and you need to get your samples quickly. If you went through that process and you bought samples from them, then you're going to get a package that looks like this, and pretend I haven't opened it. And we've ordered a bunch of these. I have a bunch in my truck of common colors that I end up recommending to people. What you get is a 12 by 12 sticker of the actual paint. So this is the actual factory paint from Sherwin-Williams. It's usually like a kind of a matte finish on here, I would say, which is pretty standard for I would say it's like a matte or eggshelly type of finish. It says Repose Gray, Sherwin-Williams, up in the corner with the color code. You can kind of see it there. It's not going to show up awesome on screen. But these are super nice, and then you can put these on your walls anywhere, which is great without affecting the texture, because it won't, once it sticks to it, it's not going to adhere to it. You can move it around. And what I would recommend is when you get these samples, some people will just kind of hold them up to the wall, and that's fine. But if you actually remove the backer and put them on things, you can wrap them around outside corners, wrap them around inside corners, high on the wall, low on the wall. Put them on your dog.
Hey, buddy.
Good boy.
Your kids.
Here you go, Peanut.
Ooh.
Whatever. See how the color goes. But it's really nice, and that way you're not messing up the walls for you or the painter or anything like that. You can move them around in different lights, which is what I recommend. If you're applying paint samples, you want to apply them in a bunch of different areas of the room so you see how the color looks in different lights. And I'll shoot it real quick on a piece of poster board here. Kind of just throw the sample down here of Repose. So all you got to do is you peel this off, boom, and then you can put it on your poster board. Actually, I'll put it on this way. Boom. And then now you've got it on your poster board, and you can see what it looks like. And then it does peel right off. And I tend to save these and put them back on their little piece of like little backing that it came with. So yeah, these are really easy to use. I super like them. Yeah, once you get your samples, then you want to put them on the wall, like I said, and then start taking a look at them in different light, different times of day, all of that good stuff. That brings us to step number 5, which is to make your final selections. This is game time. So you've got your samples up, you've looked at them in a variety of lights. That's something I would highly recommend, which means you look at your samples at different points in the day when you have different light sources in the room. At night when you just have whatever lights you have, whether you have hi-hat lighting or you have lamps, whatever it is, you want to see it when it's dark outside, also in morning light, and then times throughout the day where the sun might be in different positions. So that's really important because the sun and your interior lighting and all that stuff is going to have an effect on what that color looks like through the entirety of the day. So that's just something to be aware of. And then I know a lot of my clients and a lot of people in general will have a lot of friction at this point in the process when they actually have to pull the trigger and pick a color. And I understand that, and it's a lot of times I think people have a fear of picking the wrong color. And what I always tell my clients is that the only wrong color is the one that you don't like. So if you like the color, then you did good, and that's all there is to it. So, and I always say too that, you know, if you like it, then I like it, and I think that's how you should think about it as well when you're picking colors for yourself. If you like it, then it's all good. So, as you're looking at colors, you kind of want to visualize what they would look like multiplied out and covering all of the walled surfaces. That's a little bit tough of a visualization process for some people, but that's kind of how you want to be thinking about it. And I'll say that it does tend to come down to like a gut reaction. So say you're looking at 3 colors on the wall and you have a instant negative reaction to one of the colors. The chances of you ending up liking that color when more of it is put in the room is highly unlikely, I'll say. So I would say trust your gut in these scenarios. And then my other piece of advice for this particular situation is if you're between 2 colors and you kind of like the hue of both of them, meaning like you like what the color actually is. So say you have like a light gray and then a slightly darker gray and you like both of them as far as colors go. If you're kind of like hesitant between the two, almost always I tell people to go with the lighter color because in general, I'm looking for high percentage wins. So I want to pick the color or the client to go with the color that is going to most likely work with the room that we're talking about. And in general, the lighter you go, I've just found that is the higher percentage win than going with the darker, bolder color in most applications. So that's just something I've observed anecdotally walking hundreds of clients through this process. But if I steer them more towards the lighter color, that almost always works. There's a lot of reasons why that is the case. A lot of that has to do with light reflectance value, which if you're curious about getting into the weeds on that, I did a whole video about that, which you can check out up here. But it's basically how dark the color is. You're more likely to like a lighter color in more scenarios because it's going to reflect more of the light in the room and it's going to take on more of the characteristics of the room as far as pulling in color from the carpet and furniture and other places. So again, if you want to take a look at that video, you can do so. But that's kind of where you've done all the prep work of getting these samples down and you've looked at them in various parts of the room. You want to make sure you're looking at them up against the carpet and the cabinets and the furniture and all that stuff and just seeing if visually you pick up any conflicts where you're like, this looks weird in this light or I just don't like it. And then that's the process you need to go to until ultimately you're like, this is my color, I'm pulling the trigger on this, and this is what we're going to put on the walls. Now, to assuage any other nerves that some people have a valid concern of wasting money on getting a bunch of paint tinted out and then starting to put it on and then not liking that color and then having to rebuy paint. That's a really valid concern, particularly now the way that paint prices are going currently. So one of the things that I would suggest, which can kind of help this process and take away a little bit of the pressure, is that say you're picking out the common color that's going to go in the majority of your house, like all the common areas. I would say you're estimating you need about 8 gallons, which is a decent amount of paint. What we normally do on a situation like that, we get 1 gallon tinted out the main color and then don't get any of the other paint just yet. And then we'll throw up that color on a couple walls or maybe like a full room and then take a look at it. And if the client likes it, then we continue forward and we tint out more of the paint. But that way, if you end up really not liking the color and it just didn't look how you thought it looked based on the sample, that way you didn't waste, 8 gallons of paint, which can be a fair amount of coin. So that's something that we do on a lot of big jobs, and it works really well, and that tends to, it also takes a little bit of the pressure off picking the color because you're like, okay, I'm not committed to this for like 10 gallons. Smaller rooms that only need like a gallon or 2, then, that's just going to be part of the process, and, worst case scenario, you might have to get some extra wall paint if you go with another color. So, again, that's why I would recommend using the samples, using Samplize, which has worked out really well for a lot of our clients as well. Anyways, best of luck with picking out your paint colors. I'm sure everything will turn out just fine. But if you are interested in checking out Samplize, just click the link in the description below and it'll take you right over to their website, which is super cool. And I think that's going to do it for me. So if you guys found this video useful in any way, shape, or form, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And until next time, y'all take it easy, work smart, and have a good one. Bye.
Amazing.